Hey everyone, and welcome to my review for House of the Dragon Season 2, Episode 7, The Red Sowing. And thank the old gods, I really like this one, for the most part. There are some parts I didn't enjoy as much, and if you've been watching my reviews, you can probably guess what they are because they're the same every week. But overall, this was a great episode, and we finally got the sowing of the seeds, which ended up being even more brutal than I was expecting. But we'll get into all that later. For now, let's go over the positives, negatives, my top 5 moments, a final score, and going forward, I'll be adding a new spoiler section at the end of the video where I'll go over any thoughts that might reveal stuff from future episodes, which will hopefully be more convenient for the people who don't want to know. But for now, let's start with the positives, like Corlys Velaryon meeting with both his sons, though I have to say Corlys certainly won't be winning any Father of the Year awards, but still, it's nice to see him at least show some interest in both his children, even if he's only willing to give the bare minimum of his attention. The relationship developing between these three characters is pretty different from the books, where Corlys took the initiative to bring both Adam and Alan to the sowing of the seeds, seeing Adam claim sea smoke like in the show, but unlike the show, Alan also made an attempt, going after the wild dragon sheep stealer, only to fail and end up with his cloak on fire, leaving him scarred for the rest of his life. It might have been worse if not for Adam who put out the flames, and Sea Smoke who drove Sheep Stealer away to protect them both. This would have been cool to see, but I don't mind the changes as they're clearly setting Alan up to be the heir to Driftmark, as he named himself Salt and Sea, which is exactly what Corlys is looking for. It's pretty cool seeing the brothers split up and follow their own paths, with Adam in the air and Alan on the seas. Over in the capital, I liked seeing the scheming between Ironrod and Larys Strong, which to me was suggesting neither want to give Aemond unsubstantiated information that might trigger his temper, which ends up having consequences as the Regent is caught totally unprepared for the dragons at the end. The longer Aemond stays in power, the more he seems like a time bomb waiting to go off, but I did enjoy seeing him chastise those fake Kingsguard, which was bound to happen once Aegon lost power, and I was even impressed by his mercy in sparing their lives for the Wall. Then there was all the Aegon stuff this episode. My god, was that hard to watch, and so reminiscent of his father in his final days. Both shells of their former selves, living in constant pain while struggling to walk. The acting here was excellent, cause his cries of agony were just gut-wrenching to hear. It even reminded me of Cersei's walk of shame from Game of Thrones, in the sense that even though I don't like these characters who have done truly evil acts, I can't help but feel sympathy when they face such extreme consequences for their own misdeeds. Larys and Orwell working together to speed his recovery was also interesting, and I wonder if Orwell is just doing what he's told or if he recognizes the need to remove Aemond from power as quickly as possible. I'm gonna talk a lot more about these guys later on, but I loved seeing Hugh Hammer and Ulf the White in the capital as poor Ulf gets peer pressured into leaving for Dragonstone while Hugh feels like a failure after the death of his daughter and is convinced taming a dragon is the only way to protect what remains of his family. It was also interesting to hear of his possible lineage, claiming his mother was a sister to Balon the Brave, father of his cousins, Viserys and Daemon Targaryen. Although they didn't mention her name in the show, according to the actor playing Hugh, his mother was Sarah Targaryen, a daughter of the old King Jaehaerys and his wife Good Queen Alysanne. A fascinating character, Sarah was so wild and rebellious, she eventually admitted to sleeping with multiple men at a young age, which so enraged her father she was disowned and sent to become a silent sister, but eventually escaped to work as a prostitute in Lys. Her lineage allowed her to earn great wealth, and so she moved to Volantis and started a pleasure house, becoming one of the most infamous, wealthy, and powerful people in the city. This is a cool addition to the story, but it does make me wonder where Hugh was born. Like if he's from Lys originally, or else maybe they've changed her background so Sarah became a prostitute in King's Landing? Though I find it hard to believe House Targaryen would allow one of their family to do that in the capital, but who knows. Now moving on to the negatives, I'll start with Alicent leaving the capital to spend some time relaxing in the forest. I actually think this was done well, and it makes sense for her character to need a break. I just don't see the point of including a scene of such little consequence when there's not much time left this season. I feel like every minute should be significant, and this was not. Next, I'll move on to a permanent fixture in the negative column this season, and that's Daemon in the Riverlands. Fortunately, this time wasn't as bad as other weeks because I thought Oscar Tully and the Riverlords were awesome. It's just Daemon who keeps acting like a ridiculous buffoon. Somehow Daemon ended up feeling like a child while Oscar was the adult. Not only did he turn his back on the Blackwoods, who were loyal from the beginning, but letting himself get insulted, manipulated, and completely overshadowed by a child felt like such an insult to his character in the books. I really dislike what they've done with his character, and at this point it's hard to like any scene he touches. That being said, it was great seeing Paddy Considine back to play Viserys, as that man is a hell of an actor and made yet another dream/hallucination sequence somewhat more bearable. Returning to the meeting, although I completely disagree with killing Lord Blackwood, I think Oscar Tully handled himself exceptionally well, and I very much look forward to seeing more of him, as he's clearly well suited for leadership. The last negative I want to mention is another recurring character in this section, and that's Rhaenyra Targaryen. Fortunately, I did enjoy some parts of her this episode, including her decision to go through with the Dragonseed event despite the protests of others. This was bold, and given the position she's in, feels like a necessary decision, which makes me glad she's staying strong in her conviction. But where again she's shown a failure of leadership is in refusing to discuss the plan with her small council, including her heir and hand, in order to conduct all business in private with her spy master. To me, this is pure cowardice, because it seems like she just doesn't want to deal with their criticisms. But the way I see it, if someone fears words of opposition, it's because they can't defend their own arguments. And for a queen to show such cowardice and disregard for her counselors, many of whom have proven far more competent and responsible than her, is just another reason to conclude she simply does not have what it takes to be a good leader. And that's really disappointing. Now let's move on to my top 5 moments, beginning at number 5 with the opening scene between Adam of Hall and Queen Rhaenyra. What a great way to start this episode, right up there with some of the great openings this season. It was so cool watching Seasmoke and Cyrax roar at each other and threateningly shuffle forward, and the interaction between their riders was also great, as I loved seeing Adam so quick to bend the knee and pledge his loyalty, which is reminiscent of the books where Adam proved loyal and dutiful from the start. Great opening scene that really made me excited for the Dragon Seeds. Moving to the number 4 spot, I chose the last scenes of the episode, with Ulf the White clumsily flying Silverwing over the capital, prompting Aemon to mount Vhagar and take off for Dragonstone, where he found multiple dragons waiting for him, and so fled back to King's Landing. What a hilarious scene watching Ulf try to fly his dragon. I have no idea why Silverwing chose him, but I'm very glad she did because he's quickly becoming one of my favorite characters. But as much as I enjoyed seeing Ulf fly around the capital terrifying the Greens, or Aemon mounting Vhagar only to discover his dragon advantage gone, the real highlight of the scene came at the very end when Rhaenyra stood on Dragonstone with Cyrax, Vermithor, and Silverwing behind her, roaring in an impressive display that literally sent chills all over my body. What an epic and incredible moment that was. Definitely one of the highlights of the season so far that left me on the edge of my seat waiting for next week. For the third best moment of the night, I chose Jace confronting his mother about the Dragon Seeds and his place as heir. To be honest, at first I was not enjoying the scene at all, largely because Jace being against this event is the opposite of what happened in the books, where it was all his idea, and he was the one who organized it and ultimately became the leader of the Dragon Seeds. In the books, Jacaerys is the one in charge at this point. He's the one who named Corley's hand and sent away the younger children to safety. And then he's the one who thinks of the Dragon Seed idea after a conversation with the Fool Mushroom. But in the show, they've taken all that away from him and given it to other characters while leaving him very little to do. And that I definitely don't like or agree with. But my feelings about this scene started to change when he finally got to the substance of his argument. And I quickly came to see his point of view, fearing that the loss of Targaryen prestige related to dragon riding might further harm his legitimacy and threaten his place as heir to the queen. And although I disagree with the conclusion he reaches from this information, I do completely understand his point, and agree that letting anybody claim a dragon will definitely cause some harm to the Targaryen reputation and may hurt his legitimacy, which was already struggling as he looks nothing like his supposed father, Laenor Velaryon. I really like that Jace is standing up for himself, but ultimately I think he's too fixated on lineage and blood, as there are still many things he can do to improve his chances of taking the throne, regardless of his bloodline. Everything from forging alliances with the most powerful houses of the kingdom, to excelling as a dragon rider, becoming a hero of the war, and marrying Baela Targaryen. All these things and more will help his claim and make up for perceived weaknesses. But instead of embracing these challenges, Jacaerys gets too bogged down in one aspect of his legitimacy and ultimately fails to recognize the need for more dragon riders given the weakness of their position. Still, I really did enjoy the discussion and seeing him stand up to his mother. Moving on to the second best moment of the episode, I chose the Dragonseed recruitment scene where the agent of Queen Rhaenyra searched for the bastard-born children of House Targaryen, smuggling them out of the capital towards Dragonstone. I've really been enjoying all these subterfuge scenes, like the food riot last week. For me, these missions into the city are some of the only good decisions Rhaenyra has made, and it makes me happy to see the Blacks successful in manipulating the small folk and bringing them to her side. It was also pretty cool and heartbreaking to see all the white-haired people head for the boats, knowing how many of them would end up slaughtered. One thing I did find funny though is Rhaenyra's agent moving throughout the city in a very distinct red cloak and hood, which made me laugh because why doesn't she wear a plain brown cloak? Her red outfit seems like such a bad idea when you want to be stealthy. And finally, for the best moment of the night, I of course have to go with the Sowing of the Seeds, or Red Sowing, in which the small folk bastards of House Targaryen tried to tame the dragons Vermithor and Silverwing. What an amazing sequence this was, starting with the Dragon Keepers refusing to participate. In the books, the Dragon Keepers are an order of 77 guards who protect the dragons, but the shows turned them into more of a monastic religious order, which I really enjoy, and thought it was awesome to see how fearlessly they stand up to the Queen. Clearly, they are so committed and their skills so specialized, they can do as they please, and even the Queen of Westeros can't force them to act against their conscience. Seeing them argue in High Valyrian and brazenly ignore her wishes was an amazing way to start the event. I then enjoyed hearing the Queen's speech, but that's where her contributions ended for me, because from a leadership perspective, I feel like the Queen handled this whole thing very poorly. For some reason, Rhaenyra felt no need to discuss this with the Dragon Keepers beforehand, or with her small council, or offer practical training and advice for the Dragon Seeds. And then for some reason, she sent them all at the same time and had her guards try and keep them from escaping, which of course failed when Vermithor attacked and just meant more of them, including the guards, died needlessly. As much as I enjoyed the brutality of this event, it was pretty disheartening to see Rhaenyra once again fail so miserably as a leader and queen. But thankfully, she was only a small part of these scenes, which then focused more on the Dragon Seeds, including Hugh saving an innocent girl by confronting Vermithor directly and challenging him to attack, only for the dragon to recognize his courage and accept him as a rider. I was so happy for Hugh, and I can't wait to see the look on his wife's face when her husband returns a hero. Then there was Ulf the White, who hilariously stumbled into Silverwing's lair, stepped on her eggs, and fell in a puddle of piss and waste, which somehow endeared him to the dragon, who accepted him as a rider. I'm not sure why Silverwing chose him exactly, but to me it seems like maybe she sensed that her mate Vermithor had a new rider, and so she wanted one too, so they could fly through the air together like when she was ridden by Queen Alysanne and Vermithor by King Jaehaerys. So when she saw and possibly smelled Ulf, who had the scent of dragon on him, she accepted him immediately. But whatever the reason, this was an amazing moment for the season and series as a whole. So that's my review for House of the Dragon Season 2 Episode 7, The Red Sowing. And like I said at the beginning, this was a great episode that finally gave me the sowing of the seeds, which I've been waiting for since the beginning of the show. The episode wasn't perfect by any means, but there was enough great stuff to elevate it for me into the highest quality tier, which is why I'll give it a strong 9 out of 10, with this one providing a large leap forward after the slowdown of the last couple episodes. Now before finishing up the review, I want to add a special spoilers section where I can talk about some things that might be coming up for the rest of the series. So if you don't want to hear about that, you can end the video here, and I hope to see you next week for the final review of the season. But for those who don't mind spoilers, I just want to mention a few things. The first being Adam of Hall's profound loyalty to his family and queen. I loved seeing him act so honorably this episode, and it immediately made me think of the Second Battle of Tumbleton from the books, where after the Dragon Seeds were considered traitors and forced to flee, he instead led an army into the Reach and sacrificed his life to prove himself, resulting in his brother Alan placing only one word on his epitaph: loyal. Another spoiler I want to mention was during the argument between Jaehaerys and his mother, where he asked what might happen if one of these bastard-born dragon seeds decide they want to be king, which is some serious foreshadowing as we know what will happen with Hugh Hammer and Ulf the White, both of whom end up betraying both sides to declare themselves king of Westeros. And finally, the last thing I want to mention here is the execution of Lord Blackwood, which was a huge change from the books and makes me worry about the consequences of this decision in the future, since two of my favorite characters from this era, Bloody Ben Blackwood and Black Ali Blackwood, eventually become major heroes of the war for the Blacks, and now I'm wondering whether their roles have been cut or diminished since House Blackwood has been treated so poorly in the show as opposed to the books, where they're loyal and well respected, contributing majorly to several significant battles in the Riverlands and beyond. Even if those characters do end up in the show and still side with the Blacks, I'll be disappointed, because it'll mean they're weak and cowardly for allowing the death of their lord and not standing up to Daemon and the Blacks for this betrayal of their family. So that's all for now, guys. Please let me know what you think. Do you agree this is a great episode? And what do you think of the Sowing of the Seeds event? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to come back for my next review along with the Dance of the Dragons themed videos released every Sunday. So that's it for now, guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. A special thanks to all those who contribute to CivilizationEx, like Mamoru the Obscured Hermit Alchemist, Kurgan the Immortal, Griffin Giant's Hammer, and Dane Battlehammer. If you'd like to help the channel, be sure to give a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and click on the links below, or else go to patreon.com/CivilizationEx, where you can gain early access to videos, vote on future content, and watch the Patreon-only series, Heroes of Lore and Legend.